The country is remembering those lost on Friday after a student allegedly opened fire at a high school. Late Saturday, authorities released the names of the 10 innocent people who were killed. And as in so many of these tragedies, the victims were mostly students, teenagers looking forward to birthday parties and summer break. Authorities say the alleged shooter was a student at the high school who used guns legally owned by his father. Now the governor of Texas is calling for immediate action.
We need to do more than just pray for the victims and their families. It's time in Texas that we take action to step up and make sure this tragedy is never repeated ever again in the history of the state of Texas.
Joining me now from Houston, Texas, is the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Republican Dan Patrick. Lieutenant Governor, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, obviously, our thoughts and prayers have been with the town of Santa Fe over the last few days. You've been there speaking with family members, talking to survivors. How is the community doing?
The community, like Texas, is very strong, but obviously hurting, Jake. There was a prayer vigil the other night. I'll be joining Governor Abbott later this morning at a church service. And this is a community that stands on the rock of faith. You know, Jake, in the last 10 months, Texas has been through a lot. Largest natural disaster with the hurricane, the largest church shooting, and now this. And we stand strong together on the rock of faith and the rock of our Constitution. We believe in our freedom and our liberties and our Second Amendment, and we will stand strong and we will stay together as a community, as we have done for almost the last year in many crisis situations.
We've also been following, of course, the latest developments about the shooting. Is there any new information that you've learned about this tragedy, either having to do with whatever sick motive the shooter had or how he got the guns or anything else?
There is a parent of one of the deceased students who said that her daughter had told this particular student, the shooter, the alleged killer, time and time again rebuffed his I guess, asking for a date, and she's talked about that. But in terms of any true motive, any more information, you know, police are still investigating all the journals that he's written, looking through computers and telephones, I'm sure.
The governor said he wants to do something about this, that prayers are not enough. Yes. He's announced roundtable conversations coming up early this week about potential solutions to mass shootings, school shootings. Here's what you said about possible answers on Friday. Take a listen.
What can we do now? One, if you're a parent and you own guns, lock your guns safely away. Your children should not be able, or anyone else, to get your legally owned guns. It's a serious issue. It's one big step that we can take.
If that's how you feel, sir, should that be law?
Yes. Well, in many cases, there are laws depending on the states, and I'm sure there's some federal law regarding your culpability in a crime using a gun if it was your gun or if you own a gun. Also, there have been civil suits filed against those who own guns when someone got their guns in the past. But without question, Jake, several things need to happen. One, we have to start at home. A gun ownership, and I'm a proud gun owner, that comes with responsibility of gun control in your home. Be sure that your kids and grandkids or anyone who might have access to your home cannot get your guns. Number two, Jake,
can I just interrupt for 1 second?
I
want you to get to number two in a second, but just on number one for a second.
Sure.
Should it be law that if you, especially if you have children in the house or people under 18, I know Texas the age is 17, but should it be law that you have to lock up your guns?
Well, again, Jake, depending on the state, I'd have to look at all the federal penal code
Texas?
Right now and code concerning the guns. In Texas, again, we hold you very responsible if you're a gun owner. For example, I'm a concealed carry, as are almost 1 million Texans. If I use my gun to stop a crime or to defend myself, and a stray bullet, if I fire a bullet that goes astray and strikes someone else, I can be held not only civilly but criminally liable. So even in a case of not only controlling your guns in your home and keeping them locked up, you also can be held criminally liable if you use your gun and someone gets hurt who was not your intended target. If someone's trying to attack you and you miss them and hit someone else, yes, you can face charges. So,
right, that's the law right now
we'd have
in Texas,
to look at exactly.
there isn't a law
yes.
requiring safe storage.
Jake, Jake, I didn't come on with you this morning to go through the entire penal code of the federal government of the state. I'm just saying that every parent out there needs to understand. Every gun owner, if you're not a parent, you need to understand your guns must not be, you must control your guns at home and be sure they're locked up and kept away from others getting your guns.
Okay, you had other points you wanted to make about things you think need to be done. I want to let you continue, sir.
Sure, Jake, and thank you for that. We need our teachers to be armed. When you're facing someone who's an active shooter, the best way to take that shooter down is with a gun. But even better than that is 4 or 5 guns to 1. And yesterday or Friday, because of the heroic action of our 2 officers on the campus who were armed and a roving officer and a state trooper that showed up very quickly, they were able to stop the shooter from killing more. This school, Jake, was one of 186 school districts given an award for their safety training in Texas out of 1,000 districts. And they reacted quickly and bravely. But had teachers been armed, there was a teacher next door, a Marine, who saw what was going on, slammed the door, locked his door, protected his students. Some feel had he been able to carry a gun, he may have been able to stop that shooter had it been his choice. So in Texas, I can tell you this law, Jake, we already allow teachers to carry, but we leave it up to local control, up to the superintendent, up to the teachers, and up to the parents to make that decision. I was in the hospital visiting with a student who was wounded on Friday night, and a lot of his classmates were there. And when we asked them, Governor Abbott and I were there, and Senator Cruz, they all said to a person, our teachers should be armed. The parents said our teachers should be armed. So we need armed teachers, trained, of course, not just anyone who has a gun, but trained how to handle active shooters in the schools. We need to harden the target. Number 2, Jake, we need to get down to 1 or 2 entrances into our schools. You have the necessary exits for fire, of course, but we have to funnel our students into our schools so we can put eyes on them. This young man showed up with a trench coat, which he wore often, I've learned, and he had a gun under it, and he came through one of the entrances undetected. You know, the Israelis have 3 focus on security, and that is to deter, detect, and deny. And we have too many people who can get onto our school campuses with guns who are not deterred and are not detected. So I'm proposing that our new school designs are built that way, and we retrofit our schools. The average age of schools in America, Jake, are 44 years old. Schools weren't designed and built 40 and 50 years ago to deal with today's issues. So we can harden those targets and make it more difficult.
Well, whatever the solutions, I hope they come quick, and I hope that they are successful. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, thank you so much. We're all thinking about Santa Fe, Texas today.
Pray for us, but Texas is strong, and we will stand together and with these families and get through this time. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, sir.